So like I told you guys before, we're going to start covering some Kylo Ren comics before his new issues come out next year. We're starting with Star Wars Age of Resistance Kylo Ren, where he decides to try and prove himself in the shadow of Vader by invading a foreign planet, forcing the alien race to bend to his will, and even killing their god, something Vader couldn't do. We start with Kylo and his men preparing to enter the planet. He decides to take one of the soldiers that survived the last battle here to advise him and help him negotiate with the alien race. We learn that this very proud race is called the Bathi. They only respect size and strength. Vader was able to subdue them, but he wasn't able to kill their god. Now Kylo plans on negotiating with them and succeeding where Vader could not. But for anybody who's seen the movie already, you know, Kylo's not exactly a negotiator and he has a very hot temper, something we're gonna find out pretty soon. And we continue to see visions of Vader being in this exact same spot years before. Kylo sees this place as a place of glory, a place that Vader fought. He is standing in Vader's shadow, and he is very eager to prove himself. He wants everyone to know that he's either just as formidable or even better than his grandfather. And we learn pretty quickly why this race respects size and strength. They're very big and they're a warrior race. And Kylo comes in very cocky, very demanding because he knows he's more powerful than everyone here. So they're both basically just having a measuring contest. Now, like I said before, Kylo is not a good negotiator. He basically comes here and demands King Kristoff and all of his people stop their expansion. They've been wiping out life on all nearby planets. But Kylo wants this race to submit to the First Order, submit to him, and of course, this guy does not want to do that. It seems like Kylo tries to do that Jedi mind trick, or maybe he tries to choke this dude, but it doesn't work. I'm not really sure why. Maybe this is one of those alien races where you can't really use the Force on them. So it's kind of embarrassing, especially when he kneels down into Kylo's face and lets him know repeating yourself slower just makes you look slower. He even compares him to Vader, saying Vader was more impressive. And the senior soldier that Kylo brought with him to advise him lets him know, don't annoy him. And before he can figure out why you shouldn't annoy Kylo, he is immediately murdered. Kylo kills their king. And of course this leads to a big fight in the tent and Kylo brutally slaughters everybody. And while he's taking off heads and taking off legs and even making fun of them for not being so tall when they don't have legs, you get the feeling this is what he wanted to do regardless. No matter how this negotiation went, Kylo wanted to fight this race because that's what Vader did. He wanted to make them submit through force because that's what Vader did. But more importantly, he wants to kill their god, because Vader did not do that. You even see this when the entire planet's army shows up to defend their king that Kylo just murdered, and he is advised to retreat. But he says very plainly, did Vader retreat? And everybody starts putting on their gear and getting ready for battle. He absolutely refuses to look beneath Vader. He wants to prove to himself and even his men that he is a worthy successor. So if Vader didn't leave, he's not leaving, and it's time to fight. And I find this panel absolutely beautiful because it shows the difference between Vader and Kylo. When you see Vader telling his men to attack, it's just attack with a period. He's just normally quietly saying it, while Kylo is screaming at the top of his lungs. Even their lightsabers are very different because, as you guys know, Kylo's has a cracked crystal. His is burning with rage like he is. Even while they're fighting, Vader is quietly mowing down all of the Bathi, while Kylo is screaming at the top of his lungs, full of rage. You can even see the personality in the way they swing their blades, with Kylo throwing it way over his head, far more open to be shot and stabbed, and Vader has far more control with his swings. And what's so interesting about these two is they're both extremely angry, but the difference is Vader has controlled his anger. He's controlled his rage and he's internalized it. He's turned it into power and motivation. While Kylo's rage is all over the place. You can see it on him, and because he's a Skywalker, he can still overpower pretty much anybody. But he cannot control himself and he is incredibly unstable. Now after enough bloodshed has happened, their god does appear, a Zillo beast. Kylo tells his men to fire, but he is then advised that these beasts are unbreakable, and he responds that nothing is unbreakable, and he comes up with a plan to defeat this god. Now the beast continues to destroy Kylo's men and ships, so he decides to get into one of the shuttles and fly high enough to jump down the beast's throat and destroy it from the inside, since on the outside it does actually appear to be unbreakable. Now when Kylo has this plan that is very risky, one of his men tells him, you can't prove anything to a dead man. This is one of the big differences I've noticed throughout this entire comic, is when Captain Rutherford talks to Kylo, he's been very plain with him. Not necessarily rude, but in terms of how Vader would have treated this conversation, pretty rude. Like Vader would have snapped this dude's neck very quickly. But in his own way, Kylo does seem to be more understanding and patient with his men. And in a way, I know this must have hit Kylo because you guys know his connection with Vader is very deep. It's bordering on an obsession, but we know it's actually deeper than that. Which is why I like the fact that he just doesn't say anything. He looks at Captain Rutherford for a while and he just goes on the ship and continues his plan. He doesn't really have anything to say to something like that. And we see Captain Rutherford speaking to himself about how there's no glory here, only another wasted life. How a person cannot take on a god, no matter who they're trying to live up to, as Kylo jumps into the beast's mouth. And once Kylo does this, it looks like his men are just about ready to give up and retreat. They don't really understand what Kylo's plan is, and they're all ready to just kind of chalk this up as a loss. But suddenly, as they decide to leave, the beast starts to crash down, and Kylo rips his way out of it Kratos style. And he does, in fact, defeat their god. Now this immediately causes the Bathi to surrender, and they now bow to the First Order and Kylo Ren. And Captain Rutherford lets him know, although he said it wasn't a competition between him and Vader, if it were, Kylo won. Kylo did it his own way, and he did it in a better fashion than even Lord Vader. And the issue ends with Kylo Ren having a big smile on his face. Like I said, the relationship between him and the captain seems very casual, which I really like. I'm so used to people being extremely afraid of Vader or immediately being killed the minute they step out of line. But it seems like Kylo's men are able to speak their mind, and this was a nice little win for Kylo. He was able to prove himself and prove that he could do something even Vader couldn't. So overall, I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will catch you guys on the next one as we continue to cover more Kylo Ren comics.